Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. This is English Custom Woodworking. Today's project is this right here. I have a piece of scrap decking. It is pine. It is what you would buy at the store, 1x5, actually 5/4 might be what they call it. I think the actual nominal measurement is 15/16 in thickness. But anyway, I have a bunch of this because I am turning what was a deck into a room, and I am wanting to try to turn this decking into flooring. So to do that, I'm wanting to trim down the edge and see if I can put a tongue and groove edge on it myself with router bits that I bought and a router table. I have no idea if this is going to be a whole lot of work, but I don't really want to put this decking down as flooring without a good connection to one another, so when you walk on it over and over and over again, plus it seals better. Anyway, I want to turn this decking into flooring. So I have bought a few years ago, I've never used these, but I bought a couple sets of tongue and groove router bits for my router table. These different brands, I'll show them up close. These different brands. This set here, I believe, is just primarily for 3/4 inch material, because what would be cutting the tongue, which cuts away the top and the bottom rabbet, basically, the total distance from the top of the tooth to the bottom of the tooth is 3/4. So if you try to cut a material that's thicker than 3/4, you'll have a little bit left on the top, a little over 1/16, and a little bit left on the bottom over 1/16 with what I have 15/16. So that's not going to work. So I also bought this one a few years ago, and the bottom and top tongue bit is considerably wider, and it's actually called an adjustable tongue and groove bit. So we're going to put this on the table, we're going to try to figure this thing out, and we're going to see if this works. So before we put that bit in the table, the router table, we need to clean this piece of scrap up. I got some nails in it I need to bust out, and I'd like to just do a real light sanding on it to try to clean it up a little bit. So one consideration I have to make doing this project as a whole is that when I put these back down as flooring, I think I'm going to segment them up. I've got them in like 8-10 foot pieces. So I'm going to probably cut them down into pieces like this. They're going to be a little bit easier to manage. I actually think it'll look better in smaller pieces when I put it back down as flooring. But when you're lining them up, they all need to be the same width. Otherwise your edge to edge to edge is going to be problematic where your ends are. So when they make this product, I believe that they are shooting for 5.5 inches. But one of my considerations I have to have is they all need to be the same width. So, for example, this piece here is 5 3/8. I'd be willing to bet you that I have pieces in that pile that are probably 5.5, maybe 5 9/16, 5 3/8, 5 7/16, so a wide variety. So one of the things that I think that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to rip each piece down just to keep them all the same. So basically what I plan on doing is I'll go with the minimum width that I think that they'll be. So probably like this 5 3/8 will be as narrow, the narrowest board that I have. I will rip, I'll have a measurement on my table saw. I will barely touch one edge, and then I'll reduce my rip, and then I will barely touch the other edge, and I'll do them all the same and make them all the same width. So a real quick disclaimer, when you open a fresh set of router bits, no matter what they are, these things are unbelievably sharp and they will cut you very easily. So be very careful when you open any of these router bits and you're messing with them. The directions on this router bit was pretty vague. The gist of it is it comes with washers built into it, which are spacers, and you're supposed to equally space both the tongue bit and the groove bit to match, but the spacers are not marked as what size they are, and from the factory they don't line up. Out of the box from the factory, the width of the tongue bit did not match the width of the groove bit. So basically I had to just take these apart and experiment with what I had to do to get them spaced correctly. The recommendations on the directions stated to basically put an equal number of spacers or washers in each bit, so you'll have equal spacing. But since it didn't come from the factory equal, that doesn't work. I have a set of digital calipers, but the batteries were dead, so I had to use my manual calipers the best I could to try to gauge the set gap on the tongue bit and the groove bit the best I could. I had to do a lot of back and forth here to get it right, or close at least. It's been a couple days since I recorded this when I'm editing it, but if I remember right, each bit had like
3 larger spacers, 1 medium spacer, and about 4 really thin spacers. The directions didn't tell the thickness of each of these spacers either, which made it a little bit more difficult and a little more trial and error.
So here's my rational thinking on how I set this up. I've never done this before, so this is going to be kind of an experiment to start out with. But my thickness of my board is 15/16. And you basically have 3, you're going to section that 15/16 into 3 parts. I'm going to call this your top rabbet, your bottom rabbet, and then your middle tongue. So I tried to space this, so 15/16 divided by 3 is 5/16. So what I'm going to try to do is I cut a piece of scrap 5/16 and laid it here as a measurement guide. I have this bottom edge here, the top of that rabbet, even with the top of this at 5/16. And then my middle joint is not quite there. So my middle tongue, the groove, the tongue, is not exactly 5/16. I couldn't get my digital calipers working. I need a battery. But I think as long as I get this evenly spaced and then my other cut the same height off the bottom as this, it doesn't matter throughout the thickness of it, as long as those bottom, where it lays against the floor, up into the groove, and the other piece up into the tongue, as long as those are consistent, I think that I'll be good to go. So once again, I made the spacer, I got it even with here. I set there's a bearing in the middle that shouldn't allow it to cut any deeper, but I still set my backing even with that bearing. I can look down through here and I'm perfectly even with that bearing here in here in the middle. So I'm gonna run a board through, and the top of my top rabbet is taller than this, so it should take away all the piece that I need. So I'm gonna run a board through, see how it goes, see how it looks, and then I will put the other bit in, get it set, run it through, and see if they fit. Here we go. Maybe. Dun dun dun. Gotta have juice. Dun, dun, dun. So I put in the groove bit and I have it set, my spacer that I made for earlier for 5/16. I have it set where I can just barely slide this underneath that tooth. So that should set the back side of the board gap exactly where I need it, so this groove that I cut on the last one will fit inside, or the tongue that I cut on the last one will fit inside this groove that I cut on this one. So let's see how it works. So it worked. It is perfectly flush. My board thickness, or there was a little bit of a warp in the board on this one, so that's going to be one of my problems that I'm going to have making this flooring, this decking into flooring. So I've got a little bit of a lip here, but this is perfect. It is a little bit tight, so I either need to make my tongue just a little bit smaller, or my groove a little bit bigger. And I think that it'll still fit, and I won't have to fight it quite as much whenever I'm piecing stuff together. Just make a couple more pieces. So I made a slight shim adjustment. They come together a lot easier, and there's not a lot of slop there. It's not bad. I think that it's probably tight enough. Once again, though, these boards are a little bit warped, and this edge here is almost perfect, and this edge here, if you can see it, has got quite a bit of a lip. So we're going to do a few more, see how it turns. So I got a few pieces of scrap made up with the tongue and groove on each side. So let's take them up and lay them down on the floor and see how they look. So on this piece of flooring that I'm going to work on, I've got to stop here at a 45 because I'm going to put these flooring pieces kind of at an angle, and I'm going to work myself to the edges and to the corner. And this diamond shape here in the middle, I'm going to put some other decking at a different angle in here. So I put this along my edge as a straight edge. So I'm just going to kind of jigsaw this together in a few pieces to see how it turns out. So it's not bad, it'll look better. I get everything cut, get it all put together. This is all gonna get stained too. I'm gonna have to, after I get everything fastened down, I don't care much for some of these edges here. I'll probably have to come back with a sander. I think I can kind of sand those down. It's just this pine, I'll sand pretty easy. And I can kind of get rid of those edges. But the tongue and groove portion, they all line up nice. They're not tight because I loosened up that last joint that I cut, but I think they fit good enough to make them sturdy and secure to the floor. Because each one of them, every time you put down a row, I will take my nailer and nail along the tongue, and then the groove goes on. This first row here, whenever I go to actually put it down, I'll probably put some glue underneath it, because the more you work your way out, you're pushing your force pushing up against this row here, so this row here needs to be good and secure. But I think it looks good. I think I'm going to try it. I think that's what I'm going to work with, what I'm going to do. We'll see how it goes. So I appreciate everybody watching. If you don't mind, give me a thumbs up. If you like the video, leave a comment. Subscribe if you would. You can share the video. And I'll catch you on the next one. I think this one turned out pretty good. See how it goes whenever I do the whole floor.
Appreciate everybody watching. Remember to measure twice and cut once.
So just showing you how strong this tongue and groove system is. None of this is glued together or nailed together. It is just placed together with the tongue and groove system. So I'd say that fit and that worked pretty good.